Hi, Tony DeWitt here. You should always be careful of the example that you set, because every now and then the example that you set may be picked up by somebody you don't like and used against you. I'll have a little more on that here in just a second. Back when President Trump was at the helm of the country, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, ICE, and the Border Protection Group were very active in rounding up illegal aliens and deporting them. As we would expect, that's what the federal law requires. Certain jurisdictions, particularly those out in California and in some ultra-liberal regions of the country, like Austin, Texas, decided that they didn't like that, and that as a result, they would instruct their police departments not to cooperate. The theory behind the sanctuary cities movement and sanctuary state movement was that federal authorities, when they requested help in rounding up illegal aliens, and, for example, when they placed detainers on people who were in jail for things like domestic violence, such that when they were released on their domestic violence warrant, they would be turned over to federal authorities and deported. The counties and the states were told not to cooperate, not to notify ICE, and not to cooperate in any way with those federal detainers. And that is something that the federal courts in those states upheld. They said, no, you guys are state actors. You don't have to enforce federal law, and you can stand by and not do anything with regard to helping the federal authorities. So then along comes President Biden, and he decides that he wants to turn the Second Amendment into toilet paper and begins to think about drafting all of these laws which will severely restrict the Second Amendment. And a bunch of conservative states developed the sanctuary state policy as it applies to the Second Amendment, and basically say to the federal government, hey, we're not going to help you. We're not going to help you with these gun issues. So the Second Amendment sanctuary states basically said, we're not going to help you with these federal gun laws that you're drafting. We're not going to help enforce them. We're going to refuse to enforce them. We're not going to let our state and city police officers engage in enforcing these laws. And they've been passed in Arizona and Texas, I believe Florida and Alabama have them. And certainly Missouri has them. So a lot of these statutes are designed to essentially eliminate cooperation with federal authorities. And since they've already been declared constitutional in the sanctuary state issues for immigration, there's absolutely no reason to believe that they won't be constitutional with respect to the Second Amendment. So this creates a problem. Are we going to have supremacy or not? Well, under the Constitution, federal law is supreme over state law in its area of influence. So, for example, if Congress makes a valid law that for example, regulates interstate commerce, then that law is supreme over other laws, and they preempt other laws unless the laws can coexist. So there is a legitimate issue as to whether or not both sets of sanctuary city laws actually apply in these contexts, and I don't believe those have been fully reviewed by the United States Supreme Court. But I did want to make one cautionary note about certain laws. Back several years ago in Kansas passed a law that said, as long as you don't sell them outside the state, you can make silencers here, and you can sell silencers here as long as they're not sold for interstate commerce, believing when they did so that the federal law that prohibited the sale and manufacture of silencers outside the National Firearms Act was limited to interstate commerce. The federal authorities came in and prosecuted two men who kind of stupidly relied on that law and convicted them both of felonies and stripped them of all of their gun rights. So it is never a good idea for a state legislature to make a law that directly conflicts with federal law, whether that's in the sanctuary state process for illegal immigrants or the sanctuary state process for the Second Amendment. I'm a huge Second Amendment supporter, but the real problem with these sanctuary laws is that they put the citizen in between the state and the federal government. They make the citizen the rope in a tug of war between these two entities, and that's never a good idea. It almost always ends badly for the citizen. So before you ever take any action based on either a sanctuary state law or some law like Missouri's new law that essentially attempts to eliminate from Missouri the applicability of the National Firearms Act, you should get a legal opinion, and from somebody who does criminal and constitutional law, in order to determine what your rights are under that statute and whether it actually does provide you with any protection from the federal authorities. Because you may find out that the law has no teeth whatsoever as it applies to the federal government. So that's my take on sanctuary cities and sanctuary counties with regard to the Second Amendment and illegal aliens. I don't expect everybody to agree with me on either of these two issues, but I hope that at least it's given you some food for thought. If you found this interesting or helpful, I'd really appreciate if you'd smash that like button. And if you would, go over here and tap on the subscribe icon and select the notification bell for all of our notifications so that you can be notified whenever we post a video here on this channel. Thank you for watching. Have a terrific day.